Well, thank you so much for joining us for After School Nuggets. We're so excited that you're here. Today's topic is communicate to connect. And the purpose of this topic, we really want to help you to have meaningful virtual communication. And a lot of times it's pretty hard to really connect with people when there's a screen in the way. So today, there we go. So today in this world, as you know, the coronavirus has really changed the way that we communicate with those we work with and the kids in our program. And it all happened in a matter of days. And so we're all kind of in this new world together. And a lot of times it's really, really just new. And we all have to learn how to adapt to the new way of communicating with each other, and more importantly, how to connect virtually. So I'm going to start off with a question. And how does communication play a role in how you connect with others? So if you wouldn't mind just typing in a thought or a response that you have in the chat box. And then we'll give you about 30 seconds, and then Elinor is going to read a couple of those off.
All right, we got people who are typing today. This is exciting. We have one come in. It says it's the cornerstone to connection. I would agree with that. That was what I was going to say, is that like it's what builds my connection with others. It allows us to get to know each other. Thank you guys for your quick responses. Without clear communication, connections become unstable. Clarify things, tone, body language. Susie, we're going to get there. You are right on it. Zoom over email. There is a slide for you. Just wait. Communication is key in any relationship, helps knowing that you're not alone, allows us to get to know each other. So it seems like a lot of building. Being neurodiverse means that missing some nonverbal communication, so that can cause distancing in relationships, building positive relations. So yeah, lots of building and connecting. That's the keywords of the day.
Perfect. I love that. And I just love how you are talking about how it is the cornerstone too. Communication, whether you know it or not, you're communicating every single second of the day in all different types of ways, whether it's nonverbal or verbal, kind of like what some of you have said already, but you're communicating in so many different ways, and that is how we connect. So communication. Let's dive into what communication is. So this is the definition: a process by which information is exchanged between individuals through a common system of symbols, signs, or behavior. Also exchange of information. So what does this mean? Communication, one of the words I would love to highlight is that it's a process by which information is exchanged. So a process has actionable steps that are happening. And the first part of that we want to talk about All right, so the process of communication has 3 steps. The first step is the message, what you're trying to say or your idea that you're trying to send. The second part is transmission, and that's how you're sending that. So for example, someone said that they did Zoom or email. And the third part is reception, and that is the receiving of the message. You may be thinking, wow, this is very basic. So where are we talking about it? If you think about a car or a bicycle, If you know the parts and how they work together, then it's a lot easier to know how to fix it or how to improve it and make it better. So, just like that, we're going to be talking about each one of these different steps and what we can do to understand what it is and how we can improve it. Um, so, this is our little model here. So we have Jennifer here, and she would like to give something to Jim over here, and she is going to be passing on a message. So, first of all, she has the message, she passes it off, and he receives it. This is the process. If he were to receive it and then want to start the process again, he would take that message and he would hand it off or transmit it to Jennifer. So let's talk about the message. What do you want to communicate? So it's important to understand what you want to communicate. Whenever you're starting an important conversation, you want to think with the end in mind. Where you want to be at the end of the conversation. What do you want to get out of this conversation? So the message entails all of that. And the message really focuses in on 3 different aspects. So, in any message, you're either going to be trying to persuade or, on the opposite, dissuade someone. You're going to be trying to connect or disconnect from somebody, or you're going to be trying to inform, um, or find out information. So, when you're having a conversation with your youth, you want to understand, are you trying to persuade them to do their homework? Are you trying to build up that relationship with them? Are you trying to teach them something? And maybe you're going to have multiple different um, different uh, sorry, you're going to have multiple different reasons for why you're communicating with them. So the next important point is to organize your thoughts as well. How hard is it to find something when your room is messy, or you're trying to tell someone where something is and you know where it's at, but it's in a really hard place to find? So organizing your thoughts is one good way before you start to share a message that you can be able to help them or help share your message clearly. So before you have a message that you share, you really want to think about the word choice that you're going to use as well. If you're using words that are not age appropriate, or that are maybe too simple for those you're talking with, or maybe a little bit foreign, you're also going to have some challenges there too. So we're going to watch a little example here from Joey. So Joey decided that he would love to really support his friend, and they wanted to adopt a child. And so he wanted to write a letter of recommendation, but he wanted to make sure that it sounded really important and really well. So, here we go.
Hey, Kristen,
Mm.
I think you just want to hit that button right there.
It doesn't make any sense.
Well, of course it does. It's smart. I used a thesaurus.
On every word?
Yep.
What was this sentence originally?
Oh, they're warm, nice people with big hearts. And that became they're humid, prepossessing Homo sapiens with full-sized aortic pumps. Yeah, and hey, I really mean it, dude.
So as you can tell from this clip, you really want to make sure that the words that you're using fit in properly. You want to make sure that when you're communicating with those around you, that you're using words that they can identify with and that will present your message in a clear and precise manner. And thanks for bearing with me. The technology here is not my strong point, so I appreciate it. So next thought is, who is your audience? That kind of ties into word choice. When we're thinking about audience, are we talking to a 3-year-old, or are we talking to a professor? Are we talking to legislatives? Are we talking with parents in our program? A couple of things to think about when you are talking with people is think about your relationship with them and think about how you are able to connect with others. Is it more of a casual conversation, or are you having more of a formal conversation with others? And adjusting your language and your tone of voice to fit that. Okay, and Elinor.
So as we go through this, I'm going to pop in every few slides to bring you some tips and tricks about this kind of new phase of communication we're in and what that looks like for digital interactions with our youth and our staff. So the first one is, well, we'll get there. The first one here we have, what's your organization's policy on youth contact? Do you have a policy that requires 2 adults to be in a room with 1 child? Because then you need 2 adults in your chat room with 1 child. So just looking at what your organization's procedures are and what those look like digitally. Do you need to protect your personal info, like email and phone number? If you're doing like a Facebook Live on your own Facebook, then that connects it. If I send out an email from my work email versus my personal, those sorts of things, just knowing what will be available to the youth who are on the call. One thing that comes to mind is Zoom. If you call into Zoom, it puts your phone number instead of your name. So if you called in, then your youth would have your phone number. What devices will participants and you be using? So can you troubleshoot that software? Something Kristen, you got doing great in the comments for you. Google Slides, we all love, but Google Slides while you're streaming it is actually like the keyboard works a little differently, and some things that we're used to hitting don't work, plus different screens happening. So kind of being very familiar with the equipment you're using, knowing like, hey, at the bottom of your screen is a stop video button versus what it looks like on a phone versus a tablet, whatever the kids might have. And also keeping in mind your audience. How are you going to reach them? If you're putting Facebook Lives out and your kids don't have internet, that's not going to work. So knowing your kids, knowing what their families have access to. All right, Kristen, back to you.
All right, sounds great. So thank you so much for being patient with me. This is a perfect example of how important it is to really understand, like Elinor was saying, the technology you're using. And sometimes you're going to come across things that you aren't expecting, and you definitely have to roll with it. But as after school professionals, that's what we're good at, right? Just rolling with the punches. So thanks for being so patient with me. And I'm very excited because thank you for your comments in the comment box. So we're actually going to talk about transmission now. And that is, how are we delivering this message? So we already touched on a little bit about Zoom, email, text. There's so many different mediums, webinars, all these different types of ways of transmitting the message that we're communicating. So there are two aspects that make up communication. So the first one is verbal, and the second one is nonverbal. And as most of you have already heard this statistic before, but communication is 7% verbal and 93% nonverbal. 55% of that being body language and 38% tone of voice. So just taking this into consideration right now, how are we going to make this more of a communication, more of a connection when we are over screens and we have a hard time really expressing maybe our body language through a text message or through an email? A lot of times you can say wow, and if you're saying wow through a text, it could be like wow, or it could be like wow, you know. And so it's important that if you are having those kinds of communication, that you're putting context with that wow or with that expression, and you're being very specific. Okay, so we're gonna watch a little clip here, and
Go ahead.
Given sales, we're at
let me just say that.
Okay.
That's a great graph, John. Tyler?
Well, my main concern with the projections from last year was that they're just insufficient. I mean, they're not even taking into account. Did we lose Tyler again? Hello?
oh, I am so sorry. Technical issue.
We lost.
Oh. Well, this is the perfect example of this as well. And as a little bit of a preface, this is a conference call in real life, and what this would look like.
Go ahead.
Given sales, we're at
let me just say that.
Okay.
That's a great graph, John. Tyler?
Well, my main concern with the projections from last year was that they're just insufficient. I mean, they're not even taking into account. Did we lose Tyler again? Hello?
John, are you guys taking distributions? John?
Oh, my bad. I was on mute. Let me start over.
So I've prepared a presentation. I'm sharing it with all of you. You should be able to see it on your screen right now.
Got it.
I don't see a link anywhere. It says I need to download a plugin.
We are all using Macs, I'm assuming.
Yeah. How can you?
Financials are looking great. Paul, do you have any comments on staffing?
I was thinking about that because we get a few more contractors types in. Hold on, I'm sorry.
Rex, get down.
I don't know. I feel like when I'm so if we really tighten that up, then I don't.
To me, staffing is a huge impact. Is that me?
So I just want you guys to, oh boy, I am having a great day here with technology. So, but I just want you guys to write in the chat box a couple of the communication transmission errors that you may have within Zoom. And you can take my example too. But some of the issues that you may come in contact with transmission. So just write those in the chat box, and Elinor will be our reader.
Internet connection stability. We know that one. Lagging internet. That's going to be a popular one, I could tell. People talking over each other, background noises. We had a confession from someone that they are the solitaire person in the movie. The mute button. I personally have issue. I close out of one menu and then my space bar unmute stops working every time. Forgetting your camera is on. We've all seen that horror story. Talking over people, multitasking, internet lagging. Yeah, all of our favorites as an office for sure.
Mhm. So have you guys felt that this has been a struggle within your programming? If you've done maybe any online or even through emails or any other, and if so, would you like to uh, share your experience in the chat box?
All right, we have a green. Oh, here's one. Someone moving their computer or phone, creating extra noise. And we have a request for you to repeat the question, Kristen.
Thank you. So have you had this happen in your program, any of these errors, and what kinds of errors are you seeing mostly in your program?
All right, we have competing with kids and their school Zoom meetings, so some scheduling. Meeting people for the first time virtually, that is a very uncomfortable one. Scheduling for sure, lack of familiarity with technology, returning assignments to kids in Google Classroom, and having them, they're resubmitting to get perfect scores, letting them know that's fine, trying to have a meeting while the rest of the house is functioning normally, dogs barking, doorbells ringing, looking professional like an anchor person, the mute button, safe driving mode, switching from one program to another, Zoom to Hangouts in the same session, the whole household working from home, so overlapping in the house.
Wow. Sounds like we have a lot of different issues that are coming up. And especially when you are having background noises, when you're having a hard time connecting because of technology issues, that can be a really hard thing to really make an impact as if you were in there in person. So let's think about some ways that we can really change this from just talking to a screen, which is kind of funny because that's maybe what many of you do feel like right now, to how you can actually connect with the people. So for communication medium to be useful, it must not only enable embodiment and expression, it must also do it in a clear and explicit a way as possible. So when we are communicating, we want it to embody expression and emotion and be very clear and simple. So Elinor is going to give us a few tricks a little bit later on how to do this, but just to keep in mind and kind of to keep in your back pocket, you want to be very expressive as you go along and explicit.
Do not care.
So this is a quick example of being very clear, very precise, and making sure you're enunciating. The point is definitely getting across. It is very well put forth. And communication skills. So some of these through email or texting, you can maybe have a hard time creating the eye contact depending on culture as well. And using appropriate gestures. So maybe a high five, you can't necessarily send that in an email without maybe using emoji or a GIF. Also looking at body position when you're on Zoom or Skype and how that is being affected. Okay, and Elinor.
So with that, as you're thinking about the goal of your communication, and I'm frantically making sure I'm unmuted, I am, okay. I had some different pros and cons for types of communication. So we have our text-based, that would be email, text messages, those sorts of things. The pros are it's quick, it's easy, it's accessible. You can use emojis and memes and GIFs, and it's on our phones most of the time. The cons is there's no audible on that. You're not getting that tone feedback, and you're not getting a visual connection. Next up, we have audio. You can hear voice tone a little better. It's easily accessible. Almost everyone has access to a phone in 2020, which is nice. The cons, there's still no visual connection there. And then we have video. Your voice tone and some body language is visible. I can shrug at you. I can move my head. It's great. The cons is the technology is more difficult. Not all of our families are familiar with it or have it. It causes glitches, and your glitches are more likely. You're being dependent on technology, which is always a risk. So those are those three. So we're going to break it down a little further now. So Kristen, if you could go to the next slide. So I have broken down two basic types of a video interaction with students. The first one is social media and live streaming. So with that, we have Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitch, TikTok, were the top 5 that came to mind with the kids that I've met. And they're very familiar with these channels. So with that, they're available. A lot of connections are already made. A lot of you guys already have a business Facebook page or Instagram account. So the connection is already done there. It allows for a controlled interaction. So you don't have everyone with a video open or everyone with a mic open. Oh, I see. Can you tell us more about TikTok? I will try. So we have some delay in reactions. So kind of like the chat box right now is how those work. So I would be talking live, and then about 20 seconds later, I would get the chat show up and be like, oh, your question, let me tell you. It can be left as a video on the channel afterwards. So if I live stream to you, which is you have probably seen on our Facebook, we can live stream and we can make the live stream either go away, it was a one-time event, or it can stay as a video that you can go back and watch later and interact with. And overall, social media is more familiar to our families. It is a more common app to use. TikTok, I only know the concept of TikTok. It is the new Vine, if you know what that is. But TikTok allows kids to interact in short video clips. So a lot of challenges, a lot of choreographed dances, and just kind of remixing content. I've seen some programs have been doing TikToks as like the doors closed, and they're like, we miss you guys. And they're like dancing in the empty space. That's what they do on TikTok. So the top row of those, just so you recognize the icons, we have left to right, we have Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, which all have live features. Then we have Twitch, which is the purple eyeball thing. And that is a video streaming site, usually used for video game playing. And then we have TikTok, which is the music note and actually has words in their logo, which is nice. And Megan Shaw is saying they're usually 15-second videos with jokes or dancing, up to 1 minute. So just short little clips on TikTok. All right, on the other side, we have more of the world we're living in. We have Zoom, Google Hangouts, GoToMeeting, kind of what has been used as professional conference call systems in the past. So it allows for visual connection. Delays or glitches are likely on a slow connection. So because we are streaming everyone's video and audio in and out, it's gonna be more likely to have a slow internet delay there. It requires more skills to use and to keep participants safe. So knowing who is in your room, there's been a lot of issues with Zoom that people can access public meetings, and like people have been kind of like crashing meetings. So it's just knowing the risks for kids and knowing how to protect them in that. They do add features like whiteboards and screen sharing, which is what we're obviously doing here. So those nice, more teacher-like items are available to us. So that is kind of a flyby of various social. Microsoft Teams is another one. There are many of them, and each one has their own positives and negatives within it. So if you're looking as an organization, definitely look at what you have accessible, what costs, what's free, what works best for what you're looking for. For large groups and breakouts, I see a question in the chat. So far, we've had a huge success with Zoom for that it does breakouts nicely for us. So we can say that based on our experience. All right, Kristen, back to you.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So Elinor just shared with us a lot of really cool new things that are coming out or have been out for a little bit, and ways that you can use them. So just remember, going along with what she said, that audio communication can be more effective than text communication when building a community and supporting social interactions, because voice carries paraverbal cues. So when we're talking about paraverbal, we're talking about the pitch, intonation, other utteration. And so when you are writing, let's say if you have an email, if you have a chat, if you have something, using those word choices to express that, using maybe other for example, maybe explanation, oh my goodness, exclamation mark, or using other cues that will help people cue into what you're saying. All right, back to Elinor.
I'm back. Okay. So some tips and tricks. Enunciate. It's very easy to mumble on a video, and it's hard to be understood. This is one, if you record your videos in advance and you watch them back, you'll catch things and be like, is that what I sound like? It's painful to do, but this is where it's good. Talk to your audience. It's weird because right now I know some of you, I can see some of you, but for the most part, I am talking to a computer screen. But I know who you guys are. I know who my audience is, and I'm using the tone and verbs that I would use with you guys. If I were doing it for kids, it would be a lot more hyper, which, trust me, I can get more hyper. I would use different vocabulary. Remember, again, tone may not be evident in text communication. There is still not a sarcasm font for Facebook, even though it's 2020. Just be very careful in those. Troubleshoot your technical issues, echoes, microphones. If you have multiple kids in the same household and they all log on, you get feedback because all the mics are hearing each other. That's a common one. And give the same or more energy than you would in person. So my excited face has to be upped a little because it is going over the internet instead of being face to face.
Great. Thanks, Elinor. Okay, so moving on, as Eleanor kind of talked a little bit about transmission, using different emojis and GIFs can be also very helpful. So a picture is worth 1,000 words, and it's important that we get those nonverbals in a lot of our communication. Try and explain this simply in a few words, and you just won't quite get the same picture. So a lot of times, if you can include graphs, if you can include pictures, anything visual can really help cue that in along with auditorial. And emojis also help when you're doing text. Okay.
So we have some picture tips and tricks for you. Remember, emojis look different on different phones. Sometimes something that looks a little more silly on your phone doesn't come across that way on another phone. That's kind of a minor tip. Some emojis have other meanings. So keep in mind some cultural things that if you send certain emojis, meaning the actual object, that they have other connotations. That's as far as I will go with that. Know if you're sending gifts, know the pop culture references in the GIF. You might be condoning a TV show or something that maybe you wouldn't want to share with your kids. And avatars like Bitmoji can be a fun personalization, and tiny cartoon Elinor in the bottom right corner totally agrees that that makes life more fun.
Great. Well, thank you so much. So that is transmission, and I love the comments that we're having here in the chat box. Katie also said, along with what Elinor was saying, sarcasm is often taken personally without tone of voice. So she mentions that emojis can help, but don't always get the right context. So really making sure that you are putting in more description, or you have that right context, like Elinor was saying. Thank you for your comments. So last part, so again, a little bit of a recap. You have the message, which is your thought, your initial idea, and then you have the way that you're transmitting that, whether that's Zoom, a webinar, or over the phone, texting, emailing. And now we're getting to one of the most crucial parts about how we can really connect with people. And that's the reception, because that's what we're giving out, this message, and we're transmitting that. But how are they receiving that? And how are they understanding that? This is the part where we can really key in on connecting with people. So let's hop into it. Okay.
Smaller bites, Dash. Yikes. Bob, could you help the carnivore cut his meat? Dash, you have something you want to tell your father about school?
Well, we dissected a frog.
Dash got sent to the office again.
Good.
No, Bob, that's bad.
What?
Oh, dear. I hope this makes you feel a little bit more comfortable seeing how proficient I am. So, but kind of thinking back on that, when we're talking about how people receive that message, what are the facials that they're giving back to you? And a lot of times, like now, it's hard for me to see facials only through this Zoom. Can you do it? And a lot of times it can be challenging because you may not even be seeing their face. You may not even be hearing their responses very well. So what are some thoughts that you guys have on how you can make it so that you are understanding what they're feeling, what they're thinking? And just write this in the chat box. So Susie says, check in, thumbs up, thumbs down, like that. Any other thoughts? Ask what they heard. Ask questions. Great. Not being scared of silence.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna call out that one, the waiting for response and not being scared of silence, because doing this, it's real uncomfortable once we ask a question and we're sitting here going, is the chat box gonna answer? So we feel that.
Have them repeat in their own words what they heard, eye contact, and being able to respond by first reiterate what they said and ask follow-up questions, responses. Repeat their answers back to show you're active listening.
Mhm.
Great. And I guess not rushing through things, letting them know what you understood and making sure what they meant. Great. Love these. So we're actually going to just dive into the different thoughts that you've been having. And I really want to help us connect with our kids and with the parents that we're working with. And we can do that by using different strategies that many of you have already mentioned: active listening, asking questions. So this quote here: the biggest communication problem is that we don't listen to understand, we listen to reply. And when people are talking with us, communication only works if somebody is sending a message, it's being transmitted, but then you are also acknowledging and seeing that they received it. So if you think about maybe buying something online, you have the order and then it has to get shipped to you. And usually at the end, they give you a confirmation that you received your order or that the order has arrived. And so you can kind of think about this as your confirmation. When you're talking to people, are they understanding what you're saying? Are they confirming that they are getting the same message as you're trying to send out? If not, if you're checking in and you can tell by their body language or their words that they aren't getting the same message, then that's when you can kind of go back through the same process and tailor your message again to make sure that your message is given in a clear way that helps them to focus in on what they already know and what they've already learned. Great. And so let's skip here. So open-ended questions. This is really big also in the PQA for a lot of you. You have had observations done and maybe a little bit more familiar with it. The PQA stands for Program Quality Assessment, and in one of the sections it talks about open-ended questions. It's so important that we're putting these open-ended questions in after what we're saying so that people have an opportunity to respond and to think about what we're saying, to process for themselves the message that they're receiving. And I like what someone said here. So getting the meaning from a coded message sent versus decoding a message. So I'm actually going to ask Glory if she wants to tell us a little bit more about what she typed into the chat box for this.
I was just saying, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I was just saying how, like, piggybacking off of what you were saying, how someone is sending a message and someone is receiving it, so you have to kind of relay that message in a way that they can receive it. So taking a step back from that is realizing that when you send a message, you're coding it. It's kind of like your input, and your input could be, like your tone of voice or the medium you use to send it, but you're trying to send it in a way that the person who's receiving it can get the message and unpackage it. And that unpackaging that the receiver does is decoding your message. And hopefully those two lines of communication are open so that there's not much deciphering that needs to be done.
Great. I love that. Thank you so much. So you're wanting them to receive that message and not have to decipher, kind of going back to the organization, sifting through a bunch of Post-it notes rather than just having a board up there where you can see the message and making sure that that's clear. Thank you so much for that. any thoughts about open-ended questions? And maybe let's have you guys share experience, one or two experiences about how you've seen this work when you're talking with kids. How has this worked for you? And I'll say that again. How has using open-ended questions worked for you while you've been working in programs? So from Elizabeth, not an experience, but it gives students time to think and form an answer. And it lets the kids know that you're really interested in what they're saying and not just trying to give them the solution. And Ricky says, sorry, it just moved up. When they show up, ask what was the best part of your day. It creates more opportunity for the communication to be open. Open students and staffs up to give a real honest, open answer. And let's us know this, know the students do or do not understand. Great, wonderful. I've noticed when using smart open-ended questions, it makes it harder for the kids to give you the answer they think you know you want and causes them to be more open. Love this. Great. All right, well, because of time, we're gonna skip to the next one. And you guys have given great examples of that. And validating is the last step, making sure that they feel validated in whatever response that you're giving them. So if you're talking with them over Skype and they're giving answers, it's important to make sure that they understand that they've been heard, like you've been saying in the chat box, and that you're validating their points and seeing it from maybe their point of view. When you're open-minded to them, you're able to help them to understand that you're there for them and that you're trying to understand, like many of you have said. All right. And let's see. All right, so now we're gonna go and switch over. Thank you so much for taking the time and for being so patient with me and my personal computer struggles. It's my first time doing this and it is a little bit new for me too. So hopefully we'll be in the same boat together, and thank you for coming on that journey with me. And Elinor is gonna show you now some video call games that will help you to expand your ability to connect with kids virtually through different games that you can play. Again, remembering it's all about the message you create, transmitting it, and then the reception of it and seeing how they're receiving it. And Elinor is going to be talking about how these 3 steps apply when you're doing video call games. Take it away.
All right. So with my church, I meet with a group of teenagers every week. And we have kept that going using Google Hangouts. And so these are coming kind of from our trials and errors with them over the past few weeks. So some of these have been tested, some of these are still on my to-do list. But we wanted to I wanted to bring these to you because it's just getting your brain around communicating. Because for this group, having fun and having that game part is always part of our lesson. And we don't want to lose that just because we're separated. And I know a lot of after-school programs feel that as well. So I've collected a little list here, and it says the limit is your imagination, because that really is true, that you can take what's in front of you and change it slightly so that it works. So first up, there are computer-based games made to share. There's a website called Games for Youth Ministry, because churches are having to do this live stream thing. where they've adapted their games for that. I downloaded one from there that was like a free 30-day trial, and it flew toilet paper across the screen. And then the kids had to guess how many rolls of toilet paper they just saw. And it would tell you then how many was the correct answer. So just silly little digital games like that can be screen shared and work well. Pictionary, I can draw either on the whiteboard feature or with my with a paper in front of my camera. And I've heard that this website, scribble.io, hosts Pictionary that you can screen share between your group. Mad Libs, we love them. They're right here, ready to go. Mad Libs work great. We did one over chat last night where I said, okay, everyone throw adjectives out, and I wrote all the adjectives down. Throw your nouns out. Throw them all down, and then read the story. Great way to remind kids what their parts of speech are. Show and tell. Everyone is at home. We got cool stuff with us that we don't usually take to work or to school. Now is our chance to share it out. And we're going to do a modified one in just a second. A scavenger hunt. The first person to go into their house and find objects wins. I actually found today, I was digging through some stuff. I found this like scavenger hunt for kids card deck that I had never opened. And as I pulled it out, it's perfect for at-home scavenger hunts. Find something soft and something hard. Find 3 things that are spelled with exactly 3 letters, a jar, for example, and find 2 coins from the same year. So a great example of how a scavenger hunt item can be in your own household. So I'm going to play with those later. And I don't know where I bought them, sorry. I just found them in a drawer. Reverse charades. So heads up, if I turned away from my camera and Kristen held up a word like bunny rabbit, and then I turned back around, then you guys could act out bunny rabbit like the game Heads Up. All right, we are halfway through me throwing game ideas at you. Let's take a deep breath. Okay. You can modify TV games. So one of those is Box of Lies. Jimmy Kimmel does great games. I always want to play them. Or is it Jimmy Fallon? I don't remember which one did this now. Anyway, one of the Jimmys did a game called Box of Lies. And it's Jimmy Fallon. Thank you guys for confirming. Okay. I got my Jimmys mixed up. I'm sorry. Okay. And in that game, they were handed a box with a secret item that they would then describe, and they would decide if they were telling the truth or lying about the object. So we're going to try that. I have an object hidden out of my camera frame that has been here all day. And I'm going to describe it, and you're going to decide if I'm lying or telling the truth, and you're going to vote in the comments. So my object has a long stick with a flat end coming out of it. It's metallic rainbow shimmery on the stick. At the top, we have like a plastic ball with a red plastic ball attached. Then we have some cloth, like a cloth ruffle, and a hat with a pom-pom on the end. So, do you think that my object is the truth or a lie? I see 50-50 coming through. I really appreciate how fast the truth and lies are just flying across my screen right now. So my object, Megan Shaw called me a liar. That hurts. No. My object is a clown pencil that I've had on my desk for ages. And it is in fact rainbow metallic on a stick. It's a pencil, but stick. With a ruffle, and there's a little red ball attached. He even has eyeballs, but they're like up in there. So that is my object, which is my clown pencil someone gave me many years ago. So it's such a silly game, but it's that chance to show and tell, right? You get to like pick that really weird thing that sits on your desk at home that no one ever sees and describe it. So that is Box of Lies digital edition. Another one that works on Zoom, I'm not sure on some other ones, Zoom has the capability to change your background in some of the settings. I would demonstrate it But it doesn't allow me if I am the presenter, I believe. Let's see. Actually, this is going to work. So it doesn't work well for me because I am the same shade as my wall behind me. And so I disappear with my wall, but it could make me be at Disneyland. And so that is one. You can have kids, if you're using Zoom, have kids choose their favorite background and vote on each other's. Someone's calling me out for my love of clowns. I just saw that pop across. Okay. I Spy. So if we are not sharing, we can have everyone's camera in a grid. And so I could say, I spy something green, and I could be spying Kristen's wall. But everyone then has to hunt in the little videos to see what the I Spy is. Trivia. I love Kahoot.com. It is my favorite trivia source. All of those online trivias can be live streamed. The card game Mafia can be modified. You can play that. Actually, Mafia, we never had to be in person anyway to play that game. Once someone told me that, I was like, oh, okay. I had a summer camp where a child did not agree with Mafia being the theme of the game. That really caused them some anxiety. So you can also modify Mafia if your kids do not like that. Then you can do, like we did, slime was big that summer. So there was like a Slimer and someone who got slimed. And then there was the camp counselor trying to find who was throwing slime on people. So there's variations on Mafia if that is a content issue for you. And then true facts, other icebreakers, never have I ever with your 10 fingers, any of those verbal get to know you games go great over video. So that was a whirlwind. Take a picture of the slide, or we will send out the slides after you complete your survey. But that is all of my World of Games. This is Elinor's World of Games corner.
Thank you so much, Elinor. So many games that you can play and so many ways that you can connect with people. For example, you can create messages using the different, Pictionaries, talking about words with your kids and really connecting with them, expanding on what they're saying as well, asking them questions, and making sure that they are understanding what you're saying. So lots of fun ideas. I hope that you have taken something from this lesson today. And if not, I hope that you have learned from my lesson today and from Elinor. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And you can look forward to more of Elinor's games as well. She has so many wonderful treasures as well. And we will talk to you later. Thank you.
All right, Kristen, can you go to the next slide?
Oh, so sorry. Yeah, there we go. Thank you.
Here. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact us. I'm always up for talking about games with people. That's my favorite part of the program. You will notice on here, there is a QR code. Please follow this QR code and take a quick survey. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what I sent it privately to one person. That doesn't help us. Sorry. Let us know what you would like to see. The link is also in the chat. This is also how you receive your training certificate, and the slides is by putting your email through there. Otherwise, we have no way of contacting you, which makes us sad. That is all I have now.
Thank you so much. And we hope to hear from you soon. Thank you.
We'll stay on if anyone has any questions. Bye.
And yes, we'll stay on.
Thanks, guys.